Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to talk about the Two of Swords and the card's implications or connections to the state of dissociation. It's a psychological concept that essentially is about separating or disconnecting from a certain reality, outside reality or internal reality, or both. And those people who go through dissociation, which could be one of the many symptoms of certain psychiatric disorders or states, so it could be present in many disorders. Those people who go through these states, they find it difficult to feel, and it's a sort of desensitization that the Two of Swords can represent. So basically in this video we're looking at the symbology of the Two of Swords, and I'm connecting it with this phenomenon of dissociation that exists in psychology. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not an expert, I'm just fascinated with this field, and I also love the tarot and ASMR, so I'm creating this video as an homage to the field of psychology, and it's not in any way to help you diagnose yourself or anything like that. So let's look at the parallels. Let's look at what is going on here with the Two of Swords. First of all, the Two of Swords is blindfolded, and they are in this self-defensive position. Dissociation is, I think it can be said with high certainty that it's a trauma response. So something happens to you, something that overwhelms the consciousness, and it leaves a mark, but at the same time you're incapable of integrating it, and therefore the only way to preserve the sanity, the balance of the individual, is to disconnect from what happened. Some people describe it as if they were looking at their life from an outside perspective, so almost like an out-of-body experience, or an experience of derealization when nothing seems real. And with certain people, it goes to the most extreme point, which is dissociative identity disorder, DID for short, where the person disconnects from their identity partially, temporarily, from time to time, and they connect with an imaginary fabricated self, an alter ego, or maybe multiple of those. These people could have multiple alters that they could sort of sign into as if you had multiple accounts. And these different iterations of the person, they don't necessarily have awareness of one another. So it's a severe form of dissociation, but in certain milder forms, I think we've all gone through it. Just the mere act of daydreaming, getting lost in your thoughts during, a boring lecture at school, or simply denial, the psychological defense of denial, which we are all privy to, of course. It's a necessary mechanism to keep us healthy and balanced. Balance, again, the Two of Swords It represents this sort of state of calm and balance, but it sometimes comes at a cost. I think that's something very important to note here with the Two of Swords. So let's see. What else? In autism spectrum disorder, which nowadays the leading principle or the leading perspective in psychology is to look at psychiatric disorders and states on a continuum. And so Asperger's syndrome no longer exists. We have autism spectrum disorder, and there are quote-unquote milder expressions of autism, and also people who are going through a more severe version of it that impairs them to a greater degree. But what connects this continuum is the sense of overwhelm that follows an overload of sensory stimuli. And again, as a self-defense mechanism, there's something called autistic shutdown. And I find that the Two of Swords is also a very great representation of that. When the external world becomes too loud, your senses cannot keep up, and you find yourself in the state of anxiety. And what you can do in that situation is you can withdraw into your inner world and seek silence from within. Now, something to remember is that every card in the tarot, and I firmly believe that every phenomenon in life, whatever we talk about, there's always positives and negatives, and you can always utilize a situation, any kind of trait or mechanism or the dynamics of any situation. You can exploit it, take advantage of it, and use it for your own benefit. And I think that the Two of Swords is a reminder that, especially if you're prone to withdrawing into your world, into your own inner world, when the stress of the situation gets out of hand, if that's your coping mechanism, this is something that is, on the one hand, very clever and a very useful thing that the psyche can do to find ways to survive and to separate from situations that are too intense. But the timing of it, if you are conscious and mindful of your own tendencies to dissociate, to withdraw, to lose your connection, if you have that awareness, then you can preemptively make sure that you create an opportunity for yourself to withdraw, to retreat, before you go into this state where you have no other choice. And I believe this to be true for any psychiatric disorder, and even people who are experiencing non-pathological states of distress as a pattern. I think it's useful to know yourself, to have the data, to be able to say, I am typically overwhelmed in these types of situations, so I'm going to take precautions and make sure that I'm going to have my needs met in this situation. I'm going to make sure that I have a safe haven that I can retreat to. Because there's no shame in that. Whether it's a sensory overload or a psychic overload or a combination of the two, we people are vulnerable to these intense, extreme states of consciousness. And it is most natural to want to preserve our power and our sanity amidst these challenging situations. So there's absolutely no need to shame yourself for wanting this, for wanting to withdraw, for having introverted tendencies, perhaps. Whatever it may be that the Two of Swords represents for you, the message of this video is to allow yourself a way out. Always have a plan if you can. If you already know what triggers you, always have a plan to soften the blow. It is possible to prepare for overwhelming situations if you know yourself, if you know what sets you off, and to accommodate for your desire to withdraw and retreat when that's necessary. Honor that need, respect that boundary, be your ally, your own ally in that sense, and allow for that to happen if that's possible. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what you thought. If you like this type of content, subscribe. Watch my other videos, like this video, whatever you want to do. And you can also book a reading with me on the link that leads to my website. Find it in the description. Thank you. Bye-bye.